Hello and welcome to a Cardiff Central podcast. Still recovering from a dramatic night at the Arms Park. Callum Sheedy's kick wins it for the Blue and Blacks with the last play of the game as Ulster is defeated in the Challenge Cup. We'll be going over that comeback win, the individual standouts, a highlight reel halftime entertainment show, and looking ahead to Scarlets and the festive derbies. Plus, the Rags are back to winning ways. There's Pathway Delight and all the latest news from the capital. Joining me on the panel this week, we've got Fraser Stroud. Fraser, how are you?
Yeah, not bad. Feel like I'm in an alternative universe after winning a scrum against the head. Yeah, I don't know what happened there, so yeah, we'll go over that. But
Steve Coombs, Steve, how are you?
I'm pretty good, and no, I haven't got over it either.
And Tony,
Best
especially
Cardiff
Tony.
scrum I've seen since the 90s, I think.
Tony, how are you?
Pretty much like them too. Still can't believe it. Still bouncing.
Well, we had plenty of three-word thoughts after the game, as a win like that can only draw. So Ben says, "My poor heart." Rob said, "Voice has gone." Gerwin went with "What a win." Paul said, "Keep 'em coming." Big Reese went for this week's "Never in Doubt," which I know I feel like there might have been some doubt to certain parts of that second half. Tamara said, "Squeaky bum time." Rob went with "Final quarter chaos." Martin said, "Clubhouse law respected." David went with Fortress Arms Park as we made it 6 wins in a row at home. Chris said well-earned win, and Sean said balls of steel. It was tries from George Knott and Tom Bowen, which gave us a lead 12-0 in the first quarter of the game. But Ulster came back into it, a strong maul and then an interception right on the stroke of half-time got them 14-12 up at the break. Werner double in the first part of the second half got them a try bonus point, but in the last quarter, Cardiff overturned that 14-point deficit. There was a bit of a bad tempered affair. There was two yellow cards for Ulster, one for Cardiff, although slightly questionable whether there was actually any temper in what James Botham was doing. But Danny Southworth scored from close range, Dan Thomas at the back of a maul, and then it was all set up for that scrum and that Callum Sheedy kick to win it with the clock turning red. Fraser, coming to you first. What were your general thoughts on the game?
I think the first 20 minutes, or like 15, 20 minutes, we were really class. It was just working. It just felt like I kind of got ahead of myself. I was like, oh, we're going to absolutely batter Ulster. This is going to be an easy win. And it was just really impressive. I was just very like, obviously the try we got from that halfpenny knock on, not knock on was a bit confusing, but Bowen finished that amazingly. But then obviously, yeah, Ulster came back into it a little bit. We got a bit sloppy. And then obviously that try we conceded just on half time with that knock on, but Sheedy and they just like that fumble, and then he just ran it in. I think that was a real blow, especially considering I think we left some tries out there in the first half. So it was a bit of a yeah. I think that hit us, and obviously the first 20 minutes of the second half we were not doing great, and we were giving away a lot of silly penalties that either killed our momentum or gave them opportunities. And we just looked a little bit rudderless. But I think the changes we made, the players who kind of came on, I mean, Southworth obviously gets a lot of attention. He was brilliant when he came on. I think when it coming on made a difference as well. And I think, yeah, we kind of came back into it post the yellow cards. And, it got a bit niggly. I mean, Ulster, really irritating team. Now my new, enemies, I suppose, yeah. But yeah, we did well. We got that dry and more men, TM obviously. And then yeah, Sheedy got that conversion, which I think that was a pretty impressive conversion to be fair. And then he followed it up with that mad scrum penalty against the head, which I'm still not really sure. Yeah, like I said, actually happened. It doesn't really make any sense, but we did it and absolutely destroyed them as well. Um, and yeah, that's just to get that win at the end was amazing. And Sheedy, yeah, props to his kick in. He's got a lot of flack from myself really for his kick in, but like he really nailed those last two kicks, and there were some massive performances I think we'll touch upon later on for a lot of the team. So yeah, I was absolutely buzzing at the end, and it was a great game to watch.
Steve, your thoughts?
Um, I mean, unlike Frazier, I've actually disliked Ulster for quite some time. And I really, I'm really liking this new development where we do these comeback wins against them and nick wins against them by 1 or 2 points and just really piss them off. So I'm well in favor of that. I didn't see the game live, but I watched the last 20 or 30 minutes on a mobile phone. which was, I think I tuned in just as Josh McNally was coming on, which is a pretty good time to be tuning in. I caught up with the game last night. It did, I mean, difficult to sort of put you in the place of not knowing what the score is going to be, but it did feel like after we scored the second try, we were coming close to a third try, and you did get the feeling that it was swinging in our favor. And then I felt it feels like we got into that mindset where we were trying to force it a little bit, where we could sense that they were about to crack. We started forcing it. It got a bit loose, and then that let them back in. And we probably are still a little bit susceptible to a team with a big power game. We're still not quite holding up to that, and that got Ulster back into the game. But we came back really, really impressively, and it showed the value of a strong bench. And yeah, still blown away by that magnificent final scrum. And you got to feel really happy for Callum Sheedy as well, because I think that really does help shake off that unfortunate reputation he was developing last year.
Did you hear some of his comments after the game? He was basically waxing lyrical about Lee Halfpenny and the good that Halfpenny's done for his kicking this year, and obviously the rest of the boys. Like, just it's just so pleasing that though we've got those sort of world class players in and around the squad that are helping, because you can see the benefit of Sanjay being with us for a year or two on Win It. Like, there's some key examples of how Sanjay played for back to, you can see that in Win It, and having Halfpenny and having world class players around will just helps the squad all around, right? Like, even as a 30-year-old, Sheedy's still learning.
Yeah, I mean, when you look back to that period in the 2000s where we had, some real good quality overseas players in the side, and we had Ben Blair playing fullback just as Halfpenny was coming in. I don't think you'll get a better example of a young player benefiting from a mentor, because Halfpenny became basically exactly the same type of player as Ben Blair.
Not a
Um,
bad model, is it?
yeah, it's a great model, and that shows the value of it. And yeah, just having him training with people like Cameron and Matty Young every day is going to have a huge benefit. And it was pretty obvious last year we needed a kicking coach, and yeah, it's working out. And I mean, the club, I don't know if it was on Twitter, it was definitely on Instagram. The club did that. They showed Sheedy's kicking routine for that final kick and sort of made a joke out of it, like being like John Hamm in that series. I can't remember the name of, and that whole meditation thing. I'm sure that that's something he's already picked up from Halfpenny, because he spoke a bit about Halfpenny doing visualizations, that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, having people like that just at the club in and around every day works.
Tony, your general thoughts on the game?
Um, I obviously was stood next to you, and I largely enjoyed the game. I had to watch it back. I might have had a couple of adult beverages. I spent a lot of time berating the ref for his fashion choices, um, and Werner Cock for not wearing a bobble. But watching it back, all four of their tries seemed to come against a run of play, and like Steve was saying, but we were on the verge of a third try, and just before the scrum, the knock on that caused that was quite a good move where Ben Thomas is looping round and he's just about to get the pass away and he slipped the ball, much like Sheedy slipped the ball for them to score the intercept. So I don't know what it is. I'm going to go full Arteta and just blame the balls, I think. So, but yeah, it was it watching it back, it just felt like they weren't in it and we put them in it. So it's great mentality to have all that stuff going against you and still be able to claw out a result and come away with 5 match points like that. Like, it's one of the three words you said was balls of steel. Like, that's not just Sheedy, that's the whole team, right?
I think, I
Absolutely.
mean, there's probably an element of rustiness, wasn't there? Because
Yeah.
there were a few little handling errors through the game. We're trying to do these intricate little backs moves, which weren't quite coming off ball, not quite going to hand. But I think you can put a bit of that down to a lot of players being in Welsh camp for a while, not necessarily playing. So they probably needed to a game like this to kind of get that rustiness out of their system.
Yeah,
A couple of other three-word thoughts then, based around that last kick of the game. Gareth said Sheedo never misses, which might not hasn't necessarily been the case all the time, but was certainly the case on Saturday. And then a couple of swears. James says she fucking do. Tom said Callum fucking Sheedy, and Liam just went with Sheedo three times. CF10 Malvern branch tweeted a note in saying that they can't believe there wasn't a special mass said at St. Peter's on Sunday to celebrate Callum's kick as well. Fraser, I mean, it was such a good kick as well in the circumstance. It's quite difficult to sort of put yourself in a position of like 6,500 people watching you take this kick, and
I
it's
wasn't.
the whole game rests on it. Well, it's, yeah, 6,499 because Tony was facing the wrong way, but like it's such a good kick in the circumstance as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing, and yeah, like we said, like he has been much maligned for his kicking, and last season it wasn't very good, and it looked not very good as well. The way his technique was like, or it felt like it seemed off, and to not let that affect you, and like he must have heard some things about it, or like he must know that his kicking's not on point, and then to work at that to like push through and to get to a point where you're you know, last kick of the game, he got the conversion before, but that's so much pressure on that, and to just slot it over in spite of, maybe doubts he might have had, but like clearly he's got a really strong mentality, and yeah, balls of steel, obviously. So yeah, props to him. I'm really happy for him, and hopefully, he'll never miss again. That's the start of just like never missing. That'd be great.
A long 100% record now for the end of the
Yeah,
season.
yeah,
Steve, obviously, it was another comeback win, not just against Ulster, but sort of this season as well. A game where, last in the last couple of years, we might have gone down and not got something out of it. Is there something to be said for this team just knowing how to win now and forgetting how to lose these sort of games?
Yeah, I mean they've gone into a bit of a winning habit, haven't they? And it's a very good habit to be in. I think having more on the bench definitely is a big factor. I mean, if you think back to 2 seasons ago, Matt Sherritt's first season and all those annoying near misses, and I thought at the time a lot of those could be put down to having a fairly weak bench. Because I mean, if you remember, fairly regularly Matt Sherritt wasn't even using his whole bench. There were players he was only going to bring on in an absolute emergency, and you'd have games like I remember the Edinburgh game and the Connacht game that season. We were, playing well, if not the better team, but then they bring on like a whole raft of international forwards off the bench, and we weren't able to do the same thing. But this time round, we're able to bring Southworth off the bench, McNally. I thought Cam when it had a big impact. I thought Beetham played well when he came on.
he did. Yeah,
And that gave us an impetus towards the end, which I think in modern rugby you probably need. So that's a big factor, but also yeah, mindset and that winning habit, and also with Sheedy, I mean, it's not just the clarity of thought to make that kick, but if you watch those sort of last 20 minutes, he doesn't shut up. He's constantly talking to everyone around him. I think there's one bit in there where he's encouraging Al Lawrence to have a word with the referee.
Yeah.
So I think you can't underestimate the leadership he brings.
That was about a double. Ulster got a penalty, but he was telling Al to talk to the ref because it was the second Jackler in that won the penalty. Because I remember seeing that on the replay, and I've made a little note of it. So yeah, you're right. He certainly talks a lot more than he seemed to be doing last year. Maybe he's just more comfortable in the system.
See, I was actually thinking of a different moment.
Oh,
There
really?
was,
The
yeah.
forward
Well, I mean,
pass moment.
obviously, there was just goes to show, doesn't it? More than one moment. But towards the end of the game, there was a knock on at a ruck in our half. Ali Davis knocked the ball on at the base, and we were complaining that there were else the players interfering, and Kanchi's got with him. So it wasn't really clear. I wasn't sure whether it should have been a penalty to us or not. I mean, we won anyway. But yeah, he's having an impact just by his presence. He's becoming one of those players.
There was also a third moment which I noted down where I think it was Alan Lawrence come off the back of a scrum, give a forward pass to Ben Thomas. and it was the referee had got in the way, and it was Sheedy who came over and, and sort of saying like, "No, you got in the way, mate," and it was that then that got us the scrum rather than the initial one for Ulster, which at the time we didn't have a clue what was going on in the stand. We just turned up with the ball, but watching it back, it's Sheedy who's coming over and remonstrating there. Another couple of three-word thoughts then, based around that scrum at the end in particular. Gareth says, scrums win championships. Ryan says, just that final scrum. And Harley, if this parish, says, Bubba's scrum machines. Gareth sent us a note as well when we were asking for comments and questions earlier, just saying, it seems to me we've gained physicality and resilience to go with our flair. We've gained defence and set piece to go with our attack and breakdown. Cornel van Zyl may have been the ideal head coach to come into this group after the jockey. He does say he's getting carried away, maybe, but it's that time of year. Uh, Tony, not just that final scrum, but just the set piece generally on the night and over the last couple of weeks. How far off are we from being a set piece team now, rather than being an expansive attacking team?
Our lineup was really good. Apart from, I think the first lineup we lost was the one where Werner Koch penetrated us on the wing to score his first try. Um, but outside of that, I think we were pretty good, especially when you consider that David Hughes looked to have an elbow problem pretty early, and that's what took him off the game. And Evan Lloyd came in and pretty much hit everything again, I think. But scrum wise, they had a bit of a mark on us early doors. The ref didn't seem to like what we were doing. We got pinged a couple of times for feeding, one weirdly in roughly the same position that the final penalty happened. But from about 60 minutes on, I don't know what it was. We just seemed to start getting into the ascendancy a bit more at scrum time, and that certainly helped to the last one with that feeding thing. That's something they're concentrating on in the top 14. Be it the referees being a lot more vigilant on that. So us getting penalised earlier probably puts Ulster in more of a difficult position late in that final scrum, because they know they're getting penalised if he doesn't feed it. Because essentially, in that situation in the URC, you may as well just place it at the number eight's foot, because that's what's going to happen. But with that ref, that wasn't going to happen. And then from there, like, Southworth just got an absolutely destroyed the opposite prop. And the little celebration he does when he gets up as well. I was really like looking it back. It really looked like he was going to hit the Ronaldo zoo, just like jump in the air and spin. But yeah, he's just run around amazing. Like, yeah.
That was actually quite a good piece of insight, but it's been overshadowed by your first cock joke of the night.
Oh, sorry. Won't be
Fraser,
the
Big fan
last.
talk.
that
I was going to
that
shoe
middle
that one in, shoehorn that one in somewhere.
that middle part of the game, Fraser, not to go too negative way, but I mean we did lose 26-0 between sort of the 20th minute and the 60th minute. What was going wrong in that period for Cardiff, do you think?
I don't know. I couldn't really put my finger on exactly why we kind of lost it a little bit. It might. I was thinking about that question. I think it might have been frustration, like the fact that we'd missed so many opportunities and we'd given that try away, and then we just kind of maybe we just got a little bit annoyed at ourselves, and then started making silly because we made a few penalties in that period of time, and we just gave them possession, and we lost momentum, and we just looked a little bit sloppy, and maybe that was something to do with just to being a bit frustrated as a team in ourselves and our performance, and the fact that we let them be, in the game at half time, and then obviously get away from us a little bit. I think that's what I've kind of put it down to, because I can't think of a specific element of Ulster, what they were doing that would have like made us kind of lose our game, apart from maybe like strong forwards. Their hooker was really good, but I don't know. Yeah, I think it was mainly ourselves. We were kind of got in our heads a little bit, and then obviously, yeah, we managed to escape that and kind of use the frustration in a positive way against Ulster instead of just in ourselves and making those errors.
I
Yeah,
do
we made
think, sorry, Tony, just say, I do think a little bit was aerially we started losing it a little bit in that middle part of the game as well, and I think that's again where the substitutions were quite when it made a huge impact in that regard. And then at the time, I thought Beetham for Bowen was a slightly odd substitution just because Bowen has got that X factor, but adding that bit of extra height and kick chase from Beetham as well, it just was. I think it was a pretty smart move in hindsight at that point of the game. Sorry, Tony, you were going to say.
No, pretty much just that. Like anytime we tried to get into the ascendancy as well, we just made small errors that just took all our momentum away. We were our own worst enemy. I mentioned earlier, like it really feels like everything they scored against us was against the runner of play or down to something that we specifically did that set them up. Yeah. But they like Steve mentioned earlier, they're quite a niggly team. So that can disrupt it, especially if you're trying to get quick ball and they're niggly. There was a few things off the ball as well. Like there was I think Millard took the ball through and then got tackled. The whistle went for a knock on or something, and they flipped him in the air. And Al's complaining about that as well to the referee. And you watch a replay, and the moment Millard gets up, Cox in his face, pushing him as well. Like it's just and after he scored his try, his second try, he pushes Bowen away because Bowen's claiming there's a knock on. Like anytime there was anything, they were trying to just start a fight and rile us up. They were constantly, anytime the whistle went, they were constantly complaining. You can hear the ref telling them to stop it. At one point, they complained about us having injuries to the point where the referee went over and told us, oh, well, we're just going to have to play on if there's injuries. It's like, but we have injured players, so they need treatment. Like they tried. So that's it. They got into us by not letting us be ourselves, and we worked really hard to get across it. That's the last one, I promise.
Well, it wasn't quite as graphic as what you were going to go with pre-pod about cocking faces.
Yeah, I was waiting for that. I was like, is this all the build-up just for that
one? Steve, one of the players involved in that big scrum at the end was Sam Wainwright, who's somebody we haven't seen a huge amount of in the first part of the season, but in the last 3 games, he's got 120 minutes under his belt, made 30 tackles in that time, and I mean, would definitely had the upper hand over Angus Bell off the Ulster bench, who has been quite consensus as one of the best loose heads in the world, the Australian, over the last sort of 18 months, 2 years. He's somebody who, I mean, I don't think we were expecting him to come in and maybe like push for the Wales squad necessarily, but he's certainly added depth to our tight head stocks, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, added depth, but also he's now adding competition, isn't he? And that's what you want. I mean, having three decent players in each position is the ideal. And I mean, he's going to be pushing Sebastian and Azarati for his starting shirt if he keeps performing like that. I thought he was outstanding. I thought he played decently against Stad as well. But yeah, I mean, you look at that final scrum, and it's difficult to not think, well, let's just keep that front row on then. Let's just go with that front row week to week. And I suppose the other thing with that is, we've mentioned Evan Lloyd in terms of his line-out throwing being spot on, but clearly as a scrummaging hooker, he's developing because otherwise that scrum doesn't happen, does it?
Yeah, absolutely. He's looking much better week to week. And just on the bench generally, then Tony, we had like a couple of 3-word thoughts. Charlie said huge bench impact. Hopes he said Southworth was brilliant. Lloyd also went with Southworth changed the game. Andy Rob Neville on Reddit went with his weekly comment of does McNally have a 4-year deal now? It's going up. I dread to think what it's going to be by the end of the year every time he plays well. He votes yes, but like it's we've mentioned it before, but like that bench impact totally flipped the game on its head, didn't it, in the last 20 minutes?
Yeah, because like I said, Evan Lloyd played really well off the bench. Southworth and Wainwright, you don't need to say how good they were. I think Wainwright made like 12 tackles, maybe even 14. But even like Lucas De La Rua coming in on the last minute for Alex Mann, when you want a physical edge coming on in the last 20 minutes or so, Alex Mann's exactly what you need there. But Lucas De La Rua didn't take a backward step. He was superb, and yeah, like bringing Bevan was good. Alan Davis looked furious to be taken off, by the way, absolutely furious. Which is what you want, right? You want players out there who want to see it all through.
Ali Davis has been in really good form, I think. I thought he was superb
yeah.
against Ebro. He was my man of the match that
He's,
game, and he was great again on the weekend.
He's really stepped up because I was so worried we would miss Mulder massively, because especially as the Davis Sheedy partnership didn't really start very well last year, and Sheedy really came into his own when Mulder started playing. I was really worried we would skip a beat, but Davis has put us in the right places. Maybe the weather has helped with that as well because it's been rainy and his kicking game has really helped with that. But yeah, we've looked as good as we had with Mulder pretty much. So it'd be interesting to see what nine he picks next week if Mulder's available. So
Fraser, somebody at the other end, a starter, and slightly at the other end of the career from some of their players we mentioned. Lee Halfpenny obviously made his second debut for the club, back involved after a good number of years. He got 60 minutes under his belt. What did you make of his performance?
I think it was kind of what you'd expect for like a 35-year-old who hasn't played rugby in fucking ages. So like he's clear. Obviously, it's Lee Halfpenny. He knows what he's doing, but he wasn't. I don't mean he was at the races necessarily. He wasn't great in the air. Generally, his kicking was a little bit off. But there was moments you can still obviously still play at that level, I think, and with some more minutes under his belt, I think I'll be a really useful player to like bring in as and when we need him and like kind of fill in gaps. But I think yeah, obviously when Winnett come on, we kind of talked about it, he made a massive impact, and I don't think Halfpenny's going to be challenging the starting fullback position, but I think it's just when we need him, he can step in, and I guess he's also more around the camp kind of thing, that world class guidance for the young fullbacks, as opposed to like someone we're going to have to put money on to start and take the kicks and be brilliant. I mean, it was just lovely to see him back. He's a handsome man as well, so that always like makes us look better as a team. So yeah, I thought it was good. I was just happy to see him.
Yeah, there's some lovely images of his family and stuff all there
yeah,
enjoying,
Yeah.
and with Josh Adams' family as well. They seem very close off the field. We did mention that there was pressure on him as the kicking coach. Maybe he can learn something off Callum Sheedy now. Like the student has become the master as Halfpenny. Only went 1 for 2, and Sheedy was 100%. But no, it's also just to say about like his kicking coaching and the detail he puts in. His kicking routine is exactly the same. Like nothing has changed in 20 odd years of playing at the top level. It's that level of consistency is quite remarkable, and yeah, that anything that he can pass on is obviously greatly received by the young players. Our final three we thought to mention is from Robert, who says Bowen burned cock, which I mean is true for the try. Also sounds incredibly painful. But Steve, for an Aberdare minute, Tom Bowen, I just think like that try. It's not even like potentially one of the top three headline moments of the game, but it's such a good finish. And you kind of forget like the guy's 19 and he's in his first full season of professional rugby, and we're just sort of treating that as like, oh, Tom Bowen's doing that again on the wing. Like he is so good, isn't he?
I mean, he's got fantastic ability, but like, as you say, he just seems like such a pro and such a seasoned player already. It's so impressive. Um, what what I know about that family, the Bowen family, is like obviously everyone knows like Gareth Bowen played for the Scarlets, but also Gareth Bowen's dad, Hilton, I think he played for Swansea as an outside half in the 60s or 70s. Um, so that's a real rugby family. And I remember that Hilton used to take, Gareth, doing like practicing his kicks every day after school, that sort of thing. So Gareth would have been training like virtually a professional back in the 90s when, trust me, no one was training like a professional in the 90s. So it's a real rugby family, and he's had he'll have grown up with such a solid grounding in the game, and you can see it. And like Tony mentioned the thing with Cock, the thing with Werner Cock, after Werner Cock's try, like he handled that so well because that's clearly like a seasoned South African pro trying to intimidate the kid, and the kid's not having it, and the
yeah,
kid isn't like necessarily rising to it, but he's not having it either. So yeah,
yeah.
just
He
as
didn't
a
take a backward step at
professional, he's
all.
really impressive. Yeah, it doesn't take a backward step.
It's bizarre. Like he's still eligible for the under 26 nations after Christmas, which I don't know how much we'll see of him in that necessarily, but yeah, it's still incredibly young, and I think the conversation will once again rear its head around Wales Six Nations time, whether he makes that senior squad or not. But hopefully he continues his good run of form for Cardiff in the meantime. Anyway, And Tony, just the last bit of any of the business, Reese on Twitter has activated the tinfoil hat by mentioning that is he reading too much into the Rhino halftime takeover during the Ulster game on Saturday? Of course, Rhino were one of the parties involved in that sort of Hollywood-esque takeover. Um, just generally, though, that was one of the best halftime entertainment things I've
It
ever
was
seen.
incredible. It was incredible. I wish there'd been more teams. I wish there'd been more obstacles. It was superb. I wish we'd been allowed to know about it in advance so we could start betting on it. Um, it like that's the sort of thing that you pick a team and then the losers down their beer. Like that's the sort of like competitions you need at halftime. Because it's no fun betting on tag rugby, doing drinking games on tag rugby.
For
Not that I've
those
ever
who
done anything like that at all.
for those who either missed it or weren't at the game, it was basically there was a bunch of junior teams, so there was four junior teams, and they had like five or six at one end and five or six at the other end. And there was like a relay race of going through these obstacle courses, and one of the obstacles in particular was a rhino like circular tackle pad with the like donut shaped thing, and these kids had to launch themselves head first, full on through the hole. And some of them absolutely clean through it, but some of them either almost snapped their backs in half as their legs caught it as it went through, or for the more rotund child, you might say, basically got wedged in it, which is when I mean it's not really that like sounds bad to laugh at fat kids basically, but
It
it
wasn't
is
even, but it wasn't even like fat kids. It was just kids who were a bit broad, just
yeah,
got stuck.
if your shoulders were slightly too wide, that like you were close to breakneck on the surface. It was
Yeah, they
yeah,
were.
it
It
was
was
it
fun.
was incredible stuff. But yeah, hopefully we'll continue that rather than like watching some drunk bloke trying to catch a high spiral bomb or something like that. The only other things to mention then from the game was congratulations to the three members of the 100 Club who joined on Saturday night. Kieran Azarati, unfortunately forced off a bit early, but Rory Thornton and Ben Thomas, it was great to see them running out ahead of the game with, excuse me, members of their family. And there was a comment from Sean on Twitter about Ben in particular, who won. I think he won the official man of the match from S4C. Awarded that. Just said, for me, the last few weeks have underlined how woefully Wales handled Ben over the autumn, and have shown just what he's capable of with a more creative and experienced fly half next to him. He was absolutely superb on the evening, carrying, distributing, and defensively as well. There was one beautiful hit on the 10. Great to
The
see
only
him
person with
back.
more carries was Alan Lawrence
Yeah, so great to
on
see
both
him
teams. Yeah.
back in some form. Any more about the game on Saturday?
Can
Just
we? Oh, you go
go on.
for it.
No, go on.
Can we briefly mention that absolute bullshit yellow card? Because both of them did absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
I mean, we're talking about Ulster players looking for niggle. I mean, I watched it back a couple of times. Both of them just, he doesn't change his line or anything. He's going for a cross kick, doesn't make it. I mean, it's the Ulster fullback that runs him into him, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
what's he doing?
But he
It's
doesn't get
play
booked for
acting
it
as
that
well.
though. He doesn't get booked for that. So the ref says when he yellow cards him, he's booking them for the fight. So and then if you watch the fight, it's just the Ulster player coming over shouting obscenities at both of them, then grabbing both of them by the shirt and trying to start a fight. Both of them not doing anything, and then eventually grabbing the shirt back to just try and force him back. Just a bit of handbags, really. But that's what he gets yellow carded for because the ref didn't want any more of that. But
But
it's the Ulster player
that
who's
was
come
all the
over.
Ulster second row and
Yeah,
the Ulster fullback running straight into
yeah,
him. It's
Yeah,
exactly.
complete
Yeah.
nonsense.
Because they looked at so the ref specifically says, "Oh, we've looked at the TMO's looked at it. It's cleared it. There's no head contact, and it's the other player running into him." Essentially, is what to paraphrase what he says. But like, yeah, absolutely baffling. But if anything, it worked against them because
Yeah,
that got us up, which got the team up, which got us up, and it was just a circle from that point.
yeah, and you don't want to be losing the second row at that point of the game in your own half. So yeah, it ended up working for us. So thank you for that, Ulster second row for being an idiot.
I mentioned it off the part. I didn't have it on the running order, but I'll mention it now that I do think there's an issue with the refereeing appointments in the Challenge Cup, of where we obviously get the second tier referees after the top tier referees get given to the Champions Cup. But Our games over the last 2 weeks have been second in the URC against fourth in the top 14, and second in the URC against third in the URC. And if those games were being played in terms of like league games, you would have the top referees involved in them because they're top of the table clashes. But because we're on the basis of last season's results in the supposed second tier competition, we left with two, I would say, inexperienced referees, to be kind to them. Like I don't think the French guy on the weekend had done a lot of top 14. The Irish guy the week before, I haven't seen him a huge amount in the URC. They didn't. I don't think they either of them ended up favouring or going against Cardiff necessarily over the course of the 80 minutes, but they were two odd performances refereeing wise, where there were some decisions where you're just like, I'm not really sure what you've seen or come up with there. Or we go into the TMO, like, I don't know why it took us waiting to see the replay for the yellow card for Ulster in the second half. It was obvious that the guy had slapped the ball down as we were breaking on the outside. I don't know why between the referee and the touchers they couldn't just go, yeah, that's clear yellow card, mate. We'll just get on with it.
It was
But
like that Ben Thomas TMO decision. I forgot what he did. Was it
yeah,
the high tackle? It was
well,
just
he
like,
was a little
what
bit
are we
upright.
looking at? Yeah, bizarre. So
There
like
was
5 minutes.
there was also the Ulster hooker ran along the sideline like every hooker does when they were about to kick the touch, and he's pulled him back and said, "No, back on site." It's like, but he's speeding the game up by doing that. Like, let that happen. We want the game to go quickly. He's big. He's going to take a long time. But he seemed to get a lot stricter in that second half. So I don't know whether someone had a word with him. But yeah.
Right, good stuff. That's all for that game on Saturday. Then we'll a couple of news pieces which I've plucked out because, as I mentioned as well, we're not doing anything really as a club at the moment. We're just not putting anything out there. So I'm plucking any sort of news I can find, which includes Dwayne Goodfield being appointed Cardiff University forwards coach, replacing Nick Fish, former Cardiff hooker, of course, and academy coach. He was the scrum coach for the first team between 2018 and 2023, and we'll combine that role at Cardiff Uni with his full-time job in medical sales, which he took up leaving in that turbulent summer of 2023. Joe Cowell is back from his loan at Bedford. He was there short-term, made 3 appearances, 1 start, 2 off the bench. 2 wins and a draw for Mike Rayer's side while he was over there. Good experience for him. Playing predominantly at loose head, whereas we've maybe tried to turn him to tight head a little bit. Not sure if that's an indicator of where he wants to play, or whether that was just where Bedford needed him and where he could fill a gap for them. And then the final piece of news, good news on the fitness front. We mentioned that Alex Mann was a late, in inverted commas, withdrawal from the game on Saturday night. He was ill, so it's no injury. He's going to be available for Friday. Well, he threw a sickie. Basically, he couldn't be bothered turning up for an 8 o'clock on Saturday night. So I'll wait and get stuck into Scarlets instead. So he will be available for this weekend. We'll do the team selection for that in a bit. At this point of the pod, then, if you're enjoying what you're listening to, please feel free to subscribe and like on whatever podcast platform you're on. If your podcast platform allows you to leave a comment or review, do feel free to leave one, as long as it's quite nice. If you're watching us on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the Rap channel and also to the sister channel, the Global Game Line. Loads of good content across Welsh rugby and around the world. Next up then is Rags Corner. The Rags were in action Thursday night last week in front of the S4C online cameras and returned to winning ways after a couple of tough results. It was 26-31 away at Carmarthen. Game started with a tense first half. An early close range Owen Emmanuel try was levelled up after a Harry Wild error. Right on the stroke of half-time allowed them to score. The Quins came out and took the lead early in the second half. The scrum half going over, but the boot of Wild and tries from Alan Rees and Elijah Evans gave Cardiff a 10-point advantage. There was then a yellow card for Joe Goodchild, and the Carmarthen winger secured his hat-trick, but a late Tom Williams score meant that the Rags took the bonus point win, clutching victories from the Georgia's defeat as they've managed to succumb to in the last couple of weeks. Tony, you watched it. Your thoughts on the Rags over the last few weeks, and also looking ahead to this Saturday, of course, Bridgend in the Esposdi derby, as you change your background there to your Cardiff and Bridgend shirts.
Um, you're right. We clutched a victory out of what looked like we were spiraling towards another loss. It there isn't another team in the league, I guess, that suffers so much with call ups to the first team. Like Matty Young and Johan Emmanuel were with the first last week, so was Harry Wild. And while dropping back into the SRC is great for them, they've that's a really intense period, both mentally and physically for them. So I think Dan Fish has talked about the disruption and how it's impacting the team a lot this year. It was I was lamenting it to my wife earlier that the WIU want the SRC to be a development competition, but they also want it to be a jewel in their crown. But if you're going to have regions and pro teams calling up players to fill out gaps in the first team, which is what it's meant to be a development competition for, then those two things can't coexist. It can't be this all singing, all dancing, top level competition, which they seem to be putting in their manifesto, and not be also what it's meant to be, which is a development competition to bridge the gap. And it's much better at bridging the gap now than it was 2 years ago. But I'm just deflecting from Cardiff having a poor season, if I'm honest.
There is a point there to be made, though, that specifically with the scheduling, like you look at what Cardiff RSC had to go through that last week. You want these players to be experienced in first team rugby at the professional top level, so they're in the squad to play in Paris on the Saturday, and then you've got the moving the Rags game to the Thursday night, whilst also on the Friday night there being an under 20s game, which we'll get onto in a bit, which took some players as well, and you're like, just give us a chance here to sort of put a regular team out, give these guys some consistency, give them some structure to their season, because it happened a few years ago, I seem to remember as well. Like you got like Matty Young starting in Paris on the Saturday and then having to turn out on a Thursday cold night in Carmarthen. I seem to recall Cam Winnett making one of his first appearances away at South Africa, and then immediately playing a Thursday night away at Aberavon the following week as well on a 5-day turnaround.
The
You're like,
comparison, innit?
yeah, like these guys, that's tough for those guys. Like they'll take plenty from it and learn like bits and pieces, but in terms of just being able to put your best version of you out on the pitch week in week out, it's not really conducive to that sort of thing. It is absolutely true. This weekend though, Bridgend, how you are obviously the pod spy in Bridgend with the season ticket there as well. How are they doing this season? Can Cardiff get the win? It's a double header, of course, as well. We go back there the week
Yeah,
after.
they're struggling massively. Like they had a decent start to the season up until um, we lost to Newport and they were ahead of us. And then, as I've mentioned already once, my wife pointed out that they were ahead of us, and at which point Bridgend plummeted down the table and have looked abysmal for large portions of it. Um, they looked all right when I watched them play a couple of weeks ago against. Oh, I've forgotten now.
Really memorable game.
I know they got spanked in the end, but they played some all right stuff. Oh, it was RGC. They played some all right stuff, but they're not they're not going to set the world alight. My father-in-law was not planning to come down, but because we're in a poor run of form, he is possibly thinking about it because normally it's like a 40-point spanking for him. But yeah, he's thinking about it. But it does. He's like a founding member of the ABC, so yeah, I like to wear Cardiff shirts when he's about.
That game then on Saturday, Cardiff v Bridgend at the Arms Park. It's a 3:15 kickoff if you're planning on going, slightly different to usual because we're on S4C again. Actual linear S4C this time as well if you want to watch it on your telly box. After somehow, despite the recent run of form, Cardiff are still third. They are miles off the top two, though, 16 points off Llandudno and even further off Ebbw Vale. I think we do have a game in hand over Llandudno. Bridgend, as Tony mentioned, not doing so well. They're second bottom at the moment, 5 points off Aberavon above them, but they also have a game in hand. There is a world where Bridgend can name an entire 15 of former Cardiff academy age grade rags first team players, and they've not been far off at times this season. They've been in double figures on a number of occasions, so it is a bit Cardiff A versus Cardiff B, but it should be quite a good game still. They do have a number of good individual players at Bridgend, even if they've not quite clicked as a team.
The best thing about having a Bridgend season ticket is that I get to watch Ed Howley regularly,
Yeah.
and he's so good, so
The
good.
goat of semi-pro rugby.
Yeah.
Onto the pathway stuff then. Mentioned last week there was quite a lot of finals and it was a successful week for Cardiff teams. Pontypridd Schools won the Dewar Shield. Cardiff's blue side won the Dewar Plate. And then on Wednesday evening at the stadium, it was the WRU College League final. Commiserations to Coleg Cymoedd, but congratulations to Ysgol Glyntav. They won 28-26 in a great game, well worth watching back on YouTube if you've got a bit of time. Pretty much all the point scorers have been involved with Cardiff under-18s either this season or last season as well. And there was one try in particular that Glyntav scored. I think it made it onto Wales Online and stuff, including a great out the backdoor offload from Bailey Cutts, the academy outside centre, which was worth the price of admission alone. Congratulations to Pod's Andrew Ford, who finally saw Glyntav actually win a game as well. He didn't have to leave or anything. He was able to stay and watch the whole thing. But yeah, good stuff
Hasn't
for the pathway
hasn't
there.
he started clipping up highlights of that lad now, just for his next video?
YouTube video incoming. And then at national age grade level, the under-20s, as I mentioned, played on Friday at the Wern against Scotland. 43-28 win after a second half comeback. There were Cardiff involvements from Tom Howe, who scored a try. Reese Cummins scored 2 tries off the wing. Tom Cottle was the captain on the day, and then also involved were Sean Davis, Oshan Darwin Lewis, Callum Donahue Proud, and Joseph Jones. I think the under-19s are playing this week against England. Don't really have much information on anything about that game. It hasn't been publicised a massive amount, but there was likes of Howe and I think Jones will be available for that one again. A couple of others maybe in the junior academy as well, who were featured in that college league final, will fancy a run out in that game too. On to the final part of the podcast then, and this weekend's first game of the festive period as the Scarlets come to the Arms Park. It's a 7:45 kickoff on Friday night at the Arms Park. 80% of tickets sold at this point on Tuesday evening, so do snap up your tickets if you want to get involved in that one. After last week's weather, where I said it was raining, that was the forecast at the time. I did then say somebody should do something about it, and lo and behold, it was quite a nice, bright and dry night. So that's the power of the pod. At this point, the weather forecast for Friday is just about clinging on to some element of dryness. It's a little bit showery around, but hopefully we get another dry night for two teams that like to play a bit of rugby.
Breaking, actually.
Oh,
I'm
here we
looking
go.
at the
The
Met
Met Office
Office.
is in.
I've got sort of between 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock. I can say it is dry. Only a 20 to 10% chance of rain. 8 to 7 degrees, so should be quite chilly. But at the moment, no rain. Once again, that's no rain Friday night.
We are in for it. Get your shorts out. It's going to be a lovely evening at the Arms Park. Last 11 games, then it's currently 6-5 to the Scarlets across them, so that seems quite even. The shocking stat comes from trying to find the last time that Cardiff won this fixture at the Arms Park. I went back to January 2021. I thought, oh, great, we've won there, a home fixture. Of course, that was at Cardiff City Stadium when the Arms Park wasn't in use. So you have to go back to March 2019 when we absolutely walloped them in that first half and put 40 points on them for the last time we've beaten them at the Arms Park. Last season, we lost 19-25 at home, but beat them 15-24 away. And that's sort of how it's gone over the last few years, that the away side has tended to come out on top in this fixture. At the moment, the Scarlets are last in the URC after a real shocking start to the season, as well as having one of their games called off after they got stuck on a plane for like 6 hours trying to get across to Connacht. They've had a better run of form since the autumn internationals, though they nilled Glasgow in their single URC game. Probably should have beaten Bristol in their first game of the Champions Cup, a 1 point loss, and did get quite heavily beaten by Bordeaux on the weekend, but absolutely no shame in that because Bordeaux are quite good, as it turns out. And I thought they played some nice stuff despite the loss. I think it was 50-21 in the end, but they've certainly turned a bit of a corner performance-wise, and the results may well follow. Into this one then, Fraser. Obviously, it starts the run of festive derbies, Scarlets, and then into the Dragons and against the Ospreys on New Year's Day. We had two similar-ish questions come in. Gareth asks, is it now realistic to hope for or even expect 3 derby wins and cement a very strong league position? And then on Reddit, Craig asks, what is a successful Christmas period for the club? We're second in the table with 2 home games and then an away. We have a mostly fit squad, touch wood, with a few selection headaches. If there was an offer of 2 wins right now, would we take them? Or do we think 3 of 3 is a high probability outcome? What do you think of this Friday and the next few weeks?
I think we've got to go in with the two home games we got to win those, regardless of how we win them with a bonus point or not. I think we have to go in with that mentality. I think the game against the Ospreys at the Brewery Field might be a bit trickier. We've had difficult experiences there, and it's a hard ground to go to. But I mean, we are more than capable enough of beating all three teams. We've proven that we're like high in the table. We're playing well. When we're on it, we are looking so good and genuinely looking like we deserve to be, at the top of the table. Like, it's not just luck. So I would take two wins at home. I think that would be great. I'd shake your hand and get those points on the board. Um, but I think we can kind of push for three, and I think we deserve to think that. And I imagine the team themselves will think that because you do target. I imagine as Cardiff would be targeting these games as the games you can maybe get a bonus point or get a win over the Welsh derbies. Definitely those games that you'd kind of mark on the calendar. So I imagine the team has also kind of got that perspective. But obviously, easier said than done. Dragons got their first win, so they might have their tails up. And then Scarlets, they did get battered by Bordeaux in the end, but Bordeaux are pretty mad. The way they play is mental, and Jalibert is a bit of a nutter. Like they're just like a ridiculous team, and they did have moments of good play, and they have some really excellent players. Like obviously, I think everyone's talked about Fletcher Anderson, and then you got Josh McLeod as well. I really rate him. Um, Amongst others. But yeah, I think go in with home games. We should win those. I think this Friday, that's what we should be going into that and expecting a victory. And I think we will get a victory, to be honest.
Steve, obviously, I mean, there's rarely not a backdrop of the WRU going through some sort of shenanigans in Welsh rugby, but particularly this year where there is the very real threat of going down to three. The, I don't think necessarily, obviously, the results of this festive period are not going to determine who survives one way or the other, but in terms of like PR type stuff and keeping up appearances wise, is this the most important festive season that there's been for Welsh professional rugby and for Cardiff to get some real positive results to sort of not almost prove why we should still exist, I suppose, to a degree?
I'm expecting there to be a little bit more of an edge than normal, particularly with the Scarlets and Ospreys games. I think there's always a bit of an edge to those games, and they're always the game against Cardiff is always obviously a game those teams look forward to, but it's going to have even more of an edge this year. I'm not sure if it will matter that much to the players. I think the players are more likely to be just focused on how important it is league-wise. Um, this time of year, I always get the feeling this time of year, one way or another, kind of ends up determining how your season goes because it can really swing the momentum of a season either way. So, I mean, they're big games in any case, but yeah, I mean, we always say we're going to ignore the politics on this podcast, but with these derby games, it's going to be even more difficult than normal to completely ignore it.
Tony, just concentrating on Friday's game then. Cardiff, even sort of back before the autumn internationals, we've been grinding out wins. I think it's fair to describe our performances at times. Can we get away with that against the Scarlets or against a team that sort of plays quite similar to us? We're going to have to cut down the error count quite a lot and actually play a bit of rugby to win it.
Yeah, I think we got to go in and try and beat them early. We have a tendency to capitulate for periods of games in derbies, and capitulate's probably the wrong word, but lose focus is probably a better way to describe it, where we tend to just turn off for 20, 30 minutes and all of a sudden we're behind the pump or we've lost any momentum that we had. So getting at them, and when we get at them, just don't take our foot off their throats again, much like I said before the Dragons game earlier in the season. Once we get a bit of ascendancy, we've got to let our form know or our form go and keep working at them. On the record goes, we're the better team as it currently stands. Let's make them know it. Let's play rugby and get at them because we've got a big old pack. They'll have a big old pack. but I think we can get at them there, and I think we can get at them beyond. Some big statements to be made as well from like if they've got Hawkins at 12 and Thomas is at 12, like that's a statement game for Thomas because he wants to outperform him. Similarly in the back row, both of them will want to put statements down and stuff like that. There's a couple of like players who didn't have great autumn internationals that all want to put in performances in front of Tandy and markers down against the people that they're playing against.
Yeah, into that team selection then. Team news wise, obviously I mentioned that Man is fit. I'm putting Mulder back as available this week as well. He featured relatively prominently in the training footage from pre-Ulster game, and the 3 weeks that they said he was going to be out is up now. So hopefully that's all gone well, and he's available. Jennings also was featuring in the training footage as well after his muscle injury, so hopefully he's back and involved. And then definitely out. Obviously we've got Teddy Williams is long-term injured. Falatau's still not back. Johan Lloyd, Conor Van Zyl mentioned last week, he'll avoid surgery, but he'll have a couple of weeks out after taking a bang on his AC joint. And then we've still got Theo Cabango in rehab. Still no sign of Domachowski or Ed Byrne involved in any training either. I'm sort of going to suggest that maybe Ed Byrne isn't a Cardiff player anymore, and he's just sort of the ghost of Ed Byrne is still lingering around
He's
somewhere in the
he's another
background.
player coach.
Yeah.
And then we got a couple of question marks. And obviously, Azarati departed early on Saturday night after about half an hour. It looked like sort of maybe his calf or something like that he was struggling with. He was back on the pitch in just regular clothes at the end. Tony,
I saw him walking down the tunnel at the end, and he wasn't limping, and he was carrying a big bottle of champagne. So
oh, do you think he
it
was?
was
I thought he was limping on the pitch at the end still.
no, no, no. Walking through the tunnel like after the game, I was
Oh,
waiting
okay.
to leave, and he was walking out, and he was walking fine. So
So we've got a question mark over him where I'll probably lean towards ruling him out at this point just because he'd gone off early and that's the way it tends to go. And then we've got a couple of players who've picked up knocks over the last few weeks that we're still not sure exactly what the state of play is. Ben Donnell obviously went off against Zebra. We haven't seen him since. Tame Basham looked like he was helped off against Stade Francais and he wasn't involved at all on Saturday. And then Liam Belcher, the original thing was that they hoped he'd be back for the new year. He featured in some of the training footage last week. He was doing some line out throw in. So he may be back. Dav Hughes obviously went off at half time on Saturday as well, with looked like some sort of arm injury he picked up in the first half. So a couple of question marks there, which will make the exact team selection a bit difficult, but we'll cross those and see who's available and maybe have a bit of so and so is fit, and if not, it might be X, Y, and Z instead of them in places. But Fraser, we'll start up front. Going for props first, I think it's pretty much sort of there's an obvious four, I think, who will be involved if Azarati isn't fit, in that it'll be Barrett or Southworth on the loose head side, and then Sebastian or Wainwright on the tight head. Which way round are you going with those guys?
I think it'll probably be just switching them over. So I think Jaron Sebastian and Southworth will start, I believe. And I think I think Sam Wainwright and Jaron Sebastian is amazing that we've got those two showing they're both quality. What great signings! Like last season, no offense intended to Will Davis King, but he was kind of the guy we had to lean on, and I don't think he's at the level yet. Maybe he will get there. So it's great to have those two players who are just interchangeable. Sam Weiner has really proven himself. I think Jaron Sebastian's been brilliant. So yeah, I'd probably go Jaron Sebastian and Southworth as the starters, and then yeah, you got Barrett and Wainwright on the bench to come on.
An
it's an
inter-
interesting one for the
Exactly what I was
Mulvihill.
going to say. There's a quirk of the Mulvihill rule where they're both former Scarlets players. How do you get them both to start? There's a toss of the coin in the team meeting on Friday to see who gets the starting jersey. But yeah, I think on playing wise, I'd agree with that. You put your two best guys out, and Barrett and Wainwright have shown more than enough off the bench as well to make an impact. Hooker wise, then I'm going to put Evan Lloyd in to start. I think this is a time where he can really step up, and then also we're not too sure about Hughes Belcher fitness wise, so we'll put like whoever. I think obviously if Belcher is fit, he probably does go onto the bench as the club captain ahead of Hughes, but there's not a huge amount between all three of them playing wise necessarily at the moment, but it'd be great to see Lloyd get the start there. And then second row, I've got McNally not in there unless anyone's got any strong objections to that because I mean it just is them too. But Steve, then onto the back row, we've got Alex Mann, James Botham, Alan Lawrence, Lucas De La Rua, and then potentially Tame Basham coming back in there, Dan Thomas as well. Whether that slots under the Mulvihill rule for him potentially as well. Good couple of options there. What would you be tempted with to go?
I'm going to go against the Mulvihill rule.
Oh, brave.
I think Botham has been so good you can't drop him.
Yeah.
I think in a derby game like this, you absolutely have to have Alex Mann in there.
Yeah.
So you got to go with the Botham Lawrence Mann back row. That I feel good about that back row.
Mm.
On the bench, tricky because I'd kind of like to have Tane Basham in there because of the impact he can bring. But I mean, he did take a high shot, which was unpenalised against Stad. So I'm assuming it's an HIA, and I don't know what the sort of stand down period would be for that. Because it looked like quite a bad one. Otherwise, yeah, absolutely no issue if Dan Thomas is on the bench if Basham can't play.
Yes, I suppose it'd be 12 days, which would be Thursday, wouldn't it? So, I mean, he would
Mm,
technically be available for selection again. I guess the question mark then is how much he's trained in that time or
exactly.
not.
Yeah.
And if you want to keep him to trigger the Mulvihill rule for Boxing Day, right?
Oh
Well,
yeah.
yes,
Well,
of
there's all
course.
these
Well,
implications in the Mulvihill rule that I'm not
it's
seeing.
such a tricky rule.
It's 5D chess, the Mulvihill rule, isn't it?
Um, Tony into halfbacks then. You mentioned earlier, I think we were talking about scrum halves and stuff. Not too sure what Cornel Van Zyl will do. What would if somebody put a gun to your head now? Who's wearing 9 on Friday for the start?
Davis,
Davis
Alan
wouldn't start.
Davis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, if what was the weather you said it was going to be?
It's going to be dry.
Dry.
Net office says dry.
I mean, I'm going to want. Who are they likely to play at fullback? Is it Tiny Man?
Murray if he's fit, you
Yeah.
assume.
I
Yeah.
mean, surely you watch what happened in the Autumn International and you go, please catch all of these,
I
and
do
we
think
just
he's been.
send.
I do think he's missed the Champions Cup games though, if I'm right in
Oh, is
He
he?
saying.
has, yeah, yeah. It was like I've forgotten the guy's
Yeah,
name.
Thing is, it's a
he's
home
with
game
Jack.
for him as well because he only lives in Pontcanna,
That's
so it's
true.
only a short walk.
Well, the other option is the who started the two Champions Cup games is Jack Davis, who
Yeah.
is Penturk boy, brother of Sean in our academy. So it's also a home game for him as well.
I Alec Davis, he's really stepped up the last few weeks, and I think that's who you stick with. Alice Bevan has been good off the bench, but if Mulder is fit, then I don't want to rush him back in because he can change a game late on. But Davis puts us in the right positions.
Mulder on the bench then, if he is fit,
If
you'd
he's
say.
fit, then yeah.
Yeah. And obviously there's a Mulvihill rule implication there as well for Davis, wearing 9. There's a lot of this. It's feeding into that narrative of the Scarlets, like that one tweet that appeared where the Scarlets provide players for everybody else, but there was a lot of Mulvihill rule implication. The centres I think pick themselves as well in Ben Thomas and Harry Millard. I don't think there'd be too much complaint of that from across the Cardiff fan base, and obviously Sheedy in at 10 with Lloyd still injured. Fraser, I mean, well, it's sort of similar to last week where we had to go to a vote because the wing options are again stacked. I guess the question is there a need to change them, or do we stick with as they are?
So here's a question. If
Oh, go
we
on, Steve.
think the Scarlets are going to be dodgy in the back three and vulnerable to the kicks, is Beetham coming on and doing what he did briefly
I
against
was going
Ulster?
to.
Is that a little flash forward and we'll end up actually leaving out Bowen and having Beetham on the wing purely to go after them in the air?
I was going to ask the same question. Like,
Well,
yeah,
Fraser, it's all
it's
on you. There's three questions for you.
Well, he didn't. He came on at 13, didn't he? Didn't Millard go onto the wing when he came on?
yeah.
I think he
He,
started in at
There
13.
I
was definitely a
fancy.
couple of kicks where they had Beetham chasing.
Yeah,
yeah.
I
Yeah,
fancy that Beetham was playing wing, but that they reverted to an attacking shape which we saw quite a lot last season, where Lilo ended up outside Millard quite a
right.
lot,
Okay.
and that actually Beetham was playing on the wing and Millard was at 13, but just in offensive positional play, they sort of switched a little bit. So
Yeah.
Right.
I'm
that's
pretty
what I
sure there
fancied
was
it
a
was.
free kick where we went to the air, obviously, and the guy chasing from up the middle of the field was Beetham, which
Mm.
feels like it's something they've planned,
Yeah.
like
That was
almost
quite
like
late in the game,
dissect.
wasn't it?
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was right
because
towards the end.
the S4C, I don't speak Welsh, but the S4C commentator seemed to be furious that we kicked the ball away from a free kick. Um, I don't speak Welsh, but that was the intonation I got. So,
Quinn Jones losing his mind. Yeah, Fraser, what are you picking?
I would probably go Adams and Bowen. I think Beefon on the bench because of his flexibility that he can come on the wing or centre, I think, or full back potentially. So I'd probably stick with Beefon on the bench personally.
If we, I mean, we're all picking win at 15, I assume.
Yeah.
Tony and Steve, are you going to outvote Fraser for Beetham on the left wing? Steve?
No, I'm going to stick with Bowen, but I've got a hunch that maybe we will throw this curveball and start with Beetham on the wing.
is there a possibility he starts ahead of Josh Adams?
Well, there's a Mulvihill
Maybe.
rule implication there, of course, as well.
I know. I
But
know. I did wonder.
I have to say I thought Adams was really good on
Yeah,
He
Saturday.
was,
Actually,
yeah.
he was.
quietly
He looked
excellent
really
and just
sharp.
yeah, his carrying, stepping in off the right wing, his breakdown work, his aerial work. He looks in great nick, and I fancy the Scarlets game as one where he would say, "No, I want to play that one. Rest me
Yeah.
against the Drags or something if you want, or the Ospreys, but I want to play against the Scarlets."
There's, there's also the going back to the niggle factor, which derbies always have. Adams loves to be, for want of a better word, a shithouse. He's a scrum half trapped in a winger's body and shows that every single game. So yeah, like it was just a wonder, but I'd
Yeah.
go Adams Bowen as well, just because you can't leave Bowen out. Just
He's
like
just playing too well at the moment as
Yeah,
yeah,
well.
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, he's
Electric.
just absolutely superb to watch. He gets people out of their seats, and he gets people in the ground.
And he's not a liability like defensively.
Yeah.
He could his size. You could be like, right, he's going to be like you
Yeah,
letting people in, but he puts his body on the line. Fair play to him.
yeah.
He really just it's quality.
Bench then, Tony. I think so far I've got Hughes slash Belcher, but Barrett, Wainwright. I put Thornton in the 19 jersey, who's been very good over the last few weeks, and I think will be important again over the
He
next
was
few
good
weeks.
Much
against
better since he cut
Ulster,
his hair.
worth mentioning.
Yeah, he did a great break. Did you see that the cameraman kind of just like didn't
Yeah, it
even
was
follow him? He was like,
exceptional.
bloody hell, he's going so quickly. I can't even
His
catch up with him.
his offload for Knott's try is absolutely brilliant. Like
Mm.
we get a quick ball from Alec Davis who ships it on, and then Thornton hits that line, holds the man, and just gives it to Knott, who just goes. Like it's such a lovely little offload to him.
Hmm.
Absolutely superb. Like I said, he's playing so much better since he cut his hair.
It's the opposite of Samson's hair
Does
thing, isn't it? It's the gains power with less
I don't
hair.
think he plays for the Scarlets anymore, does he?
No, Samplers in the
Oh,
biblical couch,
not
you
yeah.
know. Right, I've got Mulder in the 21 jersey. Two outside backs then. Beetham, I think, probably one. And then,
Meh.
so you think Schmidt rather than Grady
I
or
would go with
Stevens?
Grady because of the impact he can have. I think, if we're in a sticky position, it'd be quite nice to bring on the fresh Mason Grady looking to make a point.
I just wonder why did we sign Smith if we're not going to use him?
In
And if
case
he
the line can
covers,
get it, yeah.
yeah, and he covers 12, 13, 14, and 10, plus he can do everyone's taxes. Like, it's, I don't know. It just feels like the sort of game where if you want someone who can cover a lot, there's a lot of flexibility throughout the team, but I'm
I
happy to be
suppose
outvoted.
the counter
I
argument
think
to that, I think, in terms of
Beetham gives you a lot of utility
Yeah,
as
he
well,
does,
yeah,
yeah.
doesn't he?
and
So,
and
So
the
does
counter
Grady, I guess.
you don't want to say that we're like pandering to the BYU, but there is an element of playing the game with sort of what they want to see Welsh players involved, and Grady being involved. You know, the national coaches will want to see him getting minutes and stuff before Six Nations as well. So, as much as I
Is that not
don't want to
a
say they're
reason not to give
dictate.
him a game?
Well, I don't want to say they're dictating selection, but I think you can be smart about picking your battles and stuff with players and that as well. So I would have Grady in 23. Fraser, I don't know if you've got any strong feelings either way on
I'd probably go Grady. Yeah, I mean he's great to watch, so I'd like to see him just there. Yeah.
Right, that's a solid enough team then. So going from 1 to 23, got Danny Southworth, Evan Lloyd, Javan Sebastian, Josh McNally, George Knott, Alex Mann, James Botham, Alan Lawrence, Aled Davis, Callum Sheedy, Tom Bowen, Ben Thomas, Harry Millard, Josh Adams, Cam Winnett in the starting team, and on the bench, a Belcher slash David Hughes, depending on fitness availability there. Reece Barrett, Sam Wainwright, Rory Thornton, and then a Tame Basham slash Dan Thomas, depending on a bit of fitness there as well, with Johan Mulder, Jacob Beetham, and Mason Grady as the back options. I think that's a pretty solid, 23 slash 25, depending on who's available, to
It's
go
three
into that
really
game.
good backs we can bring on if we need to, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
game changers. Um, Looking at just sort of the game, like side to side with the Scarlets team, small or far away on Reddit, Fraser said, Eddie James has been looking really good for the Scarlets. How do you counter him in defence? Because most teams have struggled. I retain the opinion that actually Eddie James is Wales's best 12 when everybody's available. Not so much the Hawkins and Thomas argument that the James probably gives you the best mix at test level that you want between physicality and distribution. Uh, I think the Thomas Hawkins thing might be a focus if they do go down that route, but Thomas James might also be a bit of a battle as well there.
Yeah, but to be fair, I think Ben Thomas has been, like you mentioned earlier, excellent defensively, and his reads in the game, like he seems to be making those reads really well and just shutting down the moves before they happen. So I guess he'll just hopefully be able to kind of yeah, keep Eddie James under wraps a little bit and not allow him the space to either footballing skills like he uses like technique, or have a bit of space to run into. He's a massive bastard. So I think I think Benton, I have faith in him kind of containing that a little bit, hopefully.
Steve, which players are you looking at? Not just Friday, but the festive period as a whole from a Cardiff point of view. Who I expect Tandy will be at all three of the games. You would think as their derbies, or at least casting an eye over all of them. If you can't quite double header it on Boxing Day and New Year's Day, if he's too much of a lightweight. But who do you think could do with a big run of games either to force their way in or get back in of players who haven't been involved in the national team over the autumn?
I mean, there's a few out there. I mean, but both of them comes to mind because he sort of drifted out of the Wales reckoning, and I think is started to become less and less part of the conversation. But if he has, some big perform, and he's been playing well since coming back from injury, and if he puts in some big performances in the derbies, you can see him forcing him back into the thinking. I think we've mentioned Harry Millard, and is he like a dark horse for a belated Wales call-up? And you'd think that a couple of big performances at this point would help him force his way in. But I think there are more Cardiff players than not who I think would be perhaps targeting a Wales slot. Actually, another one would be Evan Lloyd because since coming out of Wales camp, he's been playing really well in the appearances he's made, and let's hope he keeps that.
Uh, Tony, look at that team we've just named. Where do we get at the Scarlets on Friday night? Do you think where's going to be the point of difference for Cardiff?
Big Al. He is time and time again, and to piggyback on the last question, he's time and time again for us been an absolute talisman. He carries, like he had more carries than anyone else on the field last weekend. He makes so many tackles. He drives us forward. He's not been given the captaincy as just oh, here you go. Our team captain's out at the moment. You have it. He's led from the front all year, or for the last like 18 months. He's been absolutely brilliant, to the point where if you'd mentioned Faletau was going to be fit, I know the general consensus is we start him when he's fit, but I think we're getting to a point where there's an actual conversation about, well, do we just start Alan Lawrence because he's been our best player all year. And that's where we can get at him. If we can carry hard and then have both of them man also being disruptors at the breakdown, and we can get some quick ball, then I think we'll be all right. We just need to, like I said, get that quick ball going. And if we get advantages, we just keep our foot on their throat. Do not let them off. And please don't plan any fancy dress parties.
I was thinking, Fletcher Anderson, obviously, there's a lot of chat about him being quality. This new is he Welsh qualified? I guess for like Big Al, it's kind of an opportunity to be like, F off.
Yeah,
I've been here, I've been
yeah,
performing well. Don't give him a chance before me. So, like, extra motivation for him as well to just like smash it.
totally,
I think
totally.
not just Big Al, but the leaders in the team, I think, have become a little bit of a point of a difference for us. Certainly from a couple of years ago. I mean, Big Al, Sheedy, Sergeant McNally,
McNally,
obviously, that Belcher when he's fit. That there's now a lot of like people you look to in the team to lead the others and drag people with them. Um, and that could be a big advantage for us in these derby games. Those are exactly the sort of players you need. And yeah, Big Al's a cracking example of that.
Good stuff. Any more for any more about this weekend or generally? We talked ourselves out opening
I
down the
guess
Stour or so.
just one more thing about Winnett being the fullback, and again, another opportunity for
Oh
like,
yeah,
Blair Murray's
yeah,
been picked over and over again, and Winnett's been not given that
yeah.
chance. It's
Big big
again,
big chance for Winner to make a point
yeah,
after
exactly.
being dropped by Gatland and then being well, he was injured for the autumn, wasn't he? But he can force his way in definitely.
Yeah.
Um, just my one last question would be: are we sure Steve Tandy's at the games and he's not on holiday for Christmas? Because that's what Welsh management do, right?
Gone back to his home village and he just doesn't come out for the next 6 weeks. Good stuff, right? Just a few bits to pick up on while we've been recording. The Cardiff did have their press conference today. They put up Ali Davis, which tends to be a sign that he is going to start. They also put up Danny Southworth as well, who also revealed that he lives with Alec Hepburn, the Scarlets prop. So maybe on Friday morning he can just like trip him up falling down the stairs or something like that, and
Put laxatives in his cereal.
yeah, rule him out of the game. But yeah, there was also one comment on Reddit from Craig saying, considering it is silly season when contracts are renewed and new signings are announced, where do we see the biggest gap in the squad? We'll get on to sort of squad building for next season after Christmas. I think feels a little bit insensitive on the Ospreys to do it now after the week they've had, but also we just don't really know what we're offering players at the moment. Cornel Van Zyl has said in the press conference today that these confident players will stay, but I don't think it's they're in a position to fully offer contracts at this point yet. So we'll wait until there's that level of certainty, and then we'll start digging into what the squad looks like over the next year or so.
Gloucester haven't said where Thomas Williams is going, so I'm presuming he's coming back to us, right?
I think Saracens might have something to say about that, but we can kidnap
All right,
him
we've
if
stole
required.
one scrum half from him already. We stole Mulder from him. We can steal another scrum half.
Well, and Ali Davis as well.
And Ali Davis.
Yeah, I think that's us though for this episode. We will be back with one more before Christmas. We'll have a look back on that Scarlets game and look ahead to the Dragons and Ospreys game before taking a break for the festive period. But until then, Fraser, thank you very much.
Cheers, Dan.
Cheers, Steve.
Thank you.
And cheers, Tony.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Or whatever.
You're on the pod next week, you plonker. Tell them Merry Christmas then.
Oh, yeah, I am. I forget what day it is.
But thank you for listening this week, and we will speak to you next week. Goodbye.
Ta-da.